Let me share some numbers with you. This year we have over 6,000 delegates from 70 countries. And the media is particularly strong. Our media is up 13% from last year, so there's well over 500 of you and your colleagues here with us, which is just terrific. I'm especially pleased we have a record delegation from China, huge, strong numbers from our Chinese friends. And IPW, and this is a new number, will generate $5.5 billion in direct travel spending for the United States over the next 3 years. Now, this is up from about $4.8 billion that we've done in previous years, so it looks like the numbers of inbound travel continue to go up, and the impact on the country is so important. Can't overstate the impact of IPW. All the work that we do together, all of us, connect U.S. destinations to the international markets, and it's so important. Last year, I told you that the U.S. was losing international market share. Any help that journalists can say how important it is. I just finished talking to the... This past Friday, the United States Department of Commerce put out their figures for 2018, and international travel to the United States grew by 3.5%. That might sound very good, but not when you consider that global long-haul travel last year grew by 7%. This means the U.S. is still falling behind the competition to attract international visitors. That's the bad news. And it means we've got a lot of work to do, and so I'm going to share with you what we're doing about it. Romania and a lot of people would like to live here, and we'd like to get them on board as soon as possible. We've come a long way and helping the administration appreciate and understand what a crucial value travel is to exports and as a job creator for our country. Let's rewind to the beginning of the year and listen to the President's own words on his biggest stage, the annual State of the Union address to Congress.
I want people to come into our country in the largest numbers ever, but they have to come in legally.
The point is, there is hope. We certainly don't think the President says this often enough. We've got stuff on the President saying, you can do that a little more regularly than just at the State of the Union, because these healthy numbers are good for America. They're good for everything that they want to do. But that's an opening with the administration to talk about policies to help on visitation, and we've done just that. I met with the President face-to-face this past fall, alongside U.S. Travel's most prominent corporate CEOs. We talked about several things. We talked about how important travel is to the American economy, to our workforce, and to lowering our overall trade deficit. I'm pleased to report the President was eager to hear this, or what we had to say, and receptive to the message that travel growth can be achieved without compromising security. I'm happy that he addressed it in the State of the Union remarks, but as we asked the President, you need to say this much more. It's important to keep the bad folks out, but it's much more important to get all the good folks around the world to come to the United States. We discussed with the President the value of Brand USA and why it must be reauthorized this year. We talked about expanding the visa waiver program to include even more qualified countries. This meeting was so important. It opened meaningful dialogue with the President and, importantly, his team. We showed the administration's willingness to work on a number of travel issues, and we continue dialogue with the White House and the rest of the administration on a near weekly basis. America can be and should be the most secure and the most visited country in the world, and we've got a plan to achieve that. To explain more about that, I'd like to introduce the person who plays a key role in pushing that forward, U.S. Travel's Executive Vice President for Public Affairs and Policy, Tori Barnes. Tori, please come on.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you everyone for being here. In Washington, most debates are rooted in three main priorities: trade, security, and commerce. We have a mantra that drives our public affairs program because it's a fact that travel is trade, travel is security, and travel is commerce. This is the message that the U.S. travel takes every day into the halls of Congress and to the White House and the rest of the executive branch. Even informed people don't always think of travel as an export. But when an international visitor comes to the U.S. and stays in a hotel, rides in a train, eats in a restaurant, or purchases something in a store, it is considered an export, even though the transaction is made on U.S. soil. In 2018, international visitors to the U.S. spent, or rather they exported, $256 billion. And And while the trade deficit hit a record high $622 billion last year, travel actually generated a trade surplus of $69 billion. Without that export performance of the travel industry, America's overall trade deficit would have been 11% higher. In fact, the U.S. enjoys that travel trade surplus with 9 of our top 10 trading partners. Travel also creates more jobs and better jobs than the majority of the U.S. industry, a fact born out of research that we released this past spring. In constantly stating these realities to our policymakers, we have an overarching goal: to elevate travel in the macro-political dialogue. Put more simply, this means that political leaders should think about the impact on travel when creating any policy, much like they think of other industries, like manufacturing, financial services, agriculture, and healthcare. We have a powerful story to tell, and it's backed up by data. When travel thrives, so does America. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Roger.
Thanks, Tori. Appreciate it. As Tori said, travel does strengthen our economy and our workforce, but it also plays a critical role in strengthening national security. Some of the best programs that we have to facilitate travel are also the ones that strengthen security the most. For example, America and the world are safer because of the bilateral visa waiver program. Security is something the administration cares a lot about, but it's something we care about too. Because as I say all the time, without security, there can be no travel. And we also know that the President shares our desire to add more qualified countries to the visa waiver program. Last year, President Trump said that the U.S. is strongly considering Poland's admission to the visa waiver program. Israel is another important ally under consideration. Dialogue is going on with Brazil and many others. As you can see, there are other excellent candidates to join this key security program as well. A few months ago, we introduced legislation to Congress to help these programs, new countries unfold to the visa waiver program. The bill would also rename the visa waiver program. As I always say, it's the best program with the worst name. Visa waiver sounds like you're looking the other way, but in reality, it's a layered security program on so many fronts that it's so important. So this legislation proposes to change it to the Secure Travel Partnership, which it really is, which more precisely talks about the dual purpose of both security and travel facilitation. Similarly, both security and facilitation can be better achieved by adding more customs pre-clearance airports around the world. Thanks to pre-clearance, passengers clear customs before even setting foot in the U.S., which frees up valuable resources, and then when they get here, they just move right along, right to their next destination. There are currently 15 locations in 6 countries that have pre-clearance, and that number could grow very soon. Sweden and the Dominican Republic are among countries that have just recently signed agreements to add pre-clearance sites. We're also supporting CBP's efforts to add these sites in countries such as the UK, Japan, and Colombia, and we look forward to expanding that program even further. In the past year, Customs and Border Protection has been moving to make biometric entry and exit screening a system-wide reality. I'm proud to say the U.S. now leads the world in this cutting-edge technology. It helps security officials keep track of who is coming and who is going, and makes travel both more secure and more efficient. The use of biometrics to screen passengers is steadily spreading throughout the U.S. aviation system. Facial comparison technology has proven highly accurate. Shortly after implementation at Washington's Dulles International Airport, for instance, officials intercepted several violators who were attempting to enter the U.S. with false travel documents. As you may have seen, the country's first biometric entry and exit system is now in place at Orlando International Airport. U.S. is championing this new technology, which boosts both security and efficiency for travelers, and will continue to work with CBP to implement biometric screening system-wide. I'm also sure that many of you heard the news that the administration is sending officers from CBP and TSA to support security on the U.S.-Mexico border. As soon as we heard these reports, U.S. Travel immediately activated around this issue. We've long said security and economic priorities go hand in hand. And we made it clear to the administration that resources should not be diverted away from airports or points of entry. We all know too well the cost of excessively long entry and security lines. And let me address that. Since I've been here, I've heard from many of you that your time spent at U.S. Customs is unacceptably long, and it's unacceptable to me. I want you to know I hear you. The information we gather from you on this visit is very valuable, and we're expressing that right now to the government. Our team is out talking to every airport director and getting numbers from all of our major airports on how long these wait times are taking, and we are going to speak very loudly about how important it is to address this. We've similarly heard that whenever we see this lag, we need to really step forward and do something about it, because travel goes wherever it's easiest to go, and if you get long lines, people are going to go elsewhere. We also have similarly heard of long wait times for visas have started to get longer again, especially in important markets such as China. The person I'm about to introduce will speak about that a little bit, but I want you to know that U.S. travel has succeeded in spurring the government to reduce these wait times. One of the things that happened is the U.S. government, you may have read, had a shutdown. They do silly things like that once in a while, and had a shutdown for a while, and so it kept us from hiring new people. So now the State Department, Secretary Pompeo, has sped up the number of CBP offers to be hired and trained to catch up, and that's one of the challenges we face, so we support that very much. And also, a lot of our efforts are to really talk about smart and active programs that our members can help facilitate. To speak on our members' behalf and introduce a very good friend of mine who most of you know. He was host of IPW in 2017 in Washington, D.C. He spoke to you all last year in Denver about the 50th anniversary of IPW and the growth of this important event. I'd like you to welcome U.S. Travel's new National Chair, President and CEO of Destination DC, Elliot Ferguson. Elliot?
Thanks again, Roger, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here in this capacity and, of course, to serve as the chair of the U.S. Travel Association and the 170 members of the board of directors. Now, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and clearly we understand the importance of economic development and what you all bring to the U.S. on a regular basis. And in Denver, we spoke specifically about the importance of IPW in its 50th year in Denver, Colorado, and the fact that we want to continue to focus on the importance of IPW and making sure that its presence lasts for years to come. We want it to continue to grow, and that happens with what we're focusing on within the U.S. government and, of course, what you all are doing to bring business to the U.S. And in that regard, I'll be assembling a task force that will specifically focus on the health of IPW to make sure that we've got another 150 or 50 years at least of it being in existence to bring additional visitation. Now, welcoming visitors from around the world is exactly what we focus on, and Roger's been talking about this specifically. It's economic development, and as the leader of Destination DC, that's exactly what we focus on. Tourism in Washington is the second largest generator from an economic perspective in our city, so things like wait times for visas and global entry and other variables that perhaps slow down travel are extremely important to us to make sure that these things are fixed. The fact that anyone is denied access or access into the U.S. continues to remain a concern of ours, and visa delays also continue to remain concerns of ours as well. I just returned from IMEX in Frankfurt just a week ago, and I personally witnessed coming through JFK those long wait times, and quite frankly, we see this as a problem, and the U.S. Travel Association, as well as others, will continue to focus on that because it simply just has to stop. It's detrimental to the economy and detrimental to everything we're focusing on in terms of promoting our destinations here at IPW. We want to continue to welcome visitation to the U.S., and we want to make sure that as Roger and his team are focusing on wait times and visa delays, that these things are taken care of immediately. Now, when you think of destinations in the U.S., there's so many great cities in which you can visit. And from our perspective, national parks are somewhat the gateway for visitation into the U.S. Our national parks are wonders in urban destinations as well as other parts of the U.S. And quite frankly, we want to make sure that they continue to remain pristine and welcoming to all visitors. 318 million folks visited international parks last year, and 1/3 of them were from international destinations. So we see that from the standpoint of a city like Washington, with our monuments, memorials, and museums, and of course DC Cool, which we hope you experienced in 2017, national parks are really important to us. But even in states like California, Joshua Tree, we want to make sure that the national parks remain pristine. And right now, we're recognizing the fact that national parks are experiencing a $12 billion deficit, which means necessary things like maintenance and repair are not necessarily getting done right now. And we want to focus on making sure that that changes as soon as possible. And I know the U.S. Travel Association and Roger and his team are focusing on two particular bills that are in Congress right now, the Restore Our Parks and Public Lands Act and the Restore Our Parks Act. These are very important because they'll establish a dedicated source of funding for our national parks for generations to come. And again, for cities like Washington or states like California, this is extremely important to all of us. We're hopeful that these will be enacted very soon because these laws are now in front of Congress, and we know the U.S. Travel Association will continue to focus on that. So again, it's my pleasure to be here. It's our pleasure to be in the exhibit hall and talking about all things Washington, D.C. And I'll say to Roger and his amazing team, congratulations on the 51st IPW in Anaheim. I know for Jay, you and your team are doing a great job. I'm glad it's you and not me. And but I will tell you, we're having fun here. And to Carolyn, I'll tell you that California is doing an amazing job. And to coin Snoop Dogg from last night, California knows how to party. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to recommend. Thanks. All right. Thank you.
Elliot spoke about the IPW in the next 50 years. We were going to announce where it's going to be. Elliot and I will be there, and I hope most of you will be there 50 years from now, but we're going to hold back that where it's going to be 50 years from now. Thanks, Elliot. It's great to have Elliot as our chair for the next 2 years, and one of the great things for me is Elliot's office is just a few blocks from mine, so we get a chance to get together quite a bit, which is important. And he's right. He's right about the national parks. They're a huge draw for international visitors. Think of it, 1/3, over 100 million international visitors go to our national parks. You know, but there's lots of great places in the world. And something that Ellie and I talk about a lot is many Americans and many even of our leaders assume that international visitors all already know about all the great things that America has to offer. And they think everybody wants to come here. Unfortunately, the numbers tell a little bit different story. America's share of the global travel market dropped from 13.7% in 2015 to just 11.7% in 2018. That little small percentage mark represents a huge number of visitors, you know, tens of thousands of jobs, and it's so critical to us. This is why we need Brand USA reauthorized this year. As you heard from Chris Thompson yesterday, Brand USA's latest return on investment data proves how valuable this program is to America and to the world. The good news is there's a lot of bipartisan effort in Congress for Brand USA's reauthorization. See, Brand USA is reauthorized 5 years at a time. So it's authorized through 2020. Last month we had a letter to support Brand USA that was signed by nearly 50 signatures from senators on both sides of the political aisle. That's basically half of all the senators in the United States. And a similar letter is soon circulating through the House of Representatives. U.S. Travel, along with our partners of the Visit U.S. Coalition, is helping with this effort to further grow and strong support that Brand USA already enjoys in Washington. I want to congratulate you, Chris, and your team on the phenomenal job that you're doing. I can't stress the importance of how important what Brand USA does to bring all of you and all our visitors from around the world. So I thank you, and also for being our premier sponsor here. But of course, I need a lot of people to thank. Elliot did it, but Jay, thank you. Visit Anaheim. Carolyn, Visit California. You're knocking it out of the park, and more to come still, but thank you. Phenomenal job your teams have done, so I want to thank you. As many of you know, the last time we were here in Anaheim was in 2007. It's amazing to see how much this destination has changed in that short period of time and how it continues to grow. So I'm glad you're all part of it. I'm glad you came from 70 countries around the world to be with us. And as my good friend Carolyn Batetta often says, if it wasn't covered by the media, it didn't happen. So we're so thrilled that you're here because telling what happened, and you can carry the story we talked about. As Tori said, travel is trade. Travel is security, travel is commerce, and each and every one of you plays a critical role in growing travel in the United States. I'm grateful for all you do. I want to thank you for being here today, and we'll see you next year in Las Vegas. Thank you.